is me, Sandra, TTC 45, and it's another beautiful day on my way to the RE clinic to see what is going on with my little sticky bean. Hopefully the little sticky bean has grew. Hopefully there's still a heartbeat. I'm really not sure what is going on with me anymore. I have prayed about it. I have cried about it. I have stressed over it, but I have given all of that up and turned this over to God because this is no longer my battle. I just have to accept what it is to come. I just hope that if it's going to end, that it ends sooner than later. But at the same token, I'm still holding on to every little bit of hope as long as they do find a baby with a heartbeat. But that's all I can do is just hold on to that little bit of hope. I am hearing you guys' prayer, and I thank you guys for praying for me. It has just been an emotional roller coaster for me. I've learned doing the researches that I've been doing that when it comes to having babies through IVF, all types of things can go wrong, and you think you've seen them all or heard them all, and you find out something new. Now, I told you guys that I went to see the OB that was on call when I went to the emergency room. She wanted to follow up with me. And when I went to see her, I didn't get any type of good news at all. She didn't even give me no bad news, you know. Basically, once she found out that I was still sharing the RE, she didn't want to kind of add her 2 cents in it. She had rather me continue to follow up with the RE and let the RE just diagnose me with whatever is going on with me. She did go over the ultrasound pictures, and from her personal opinion, she did not know what was going on. I'm not sure if she knew and just didn't want to tell me, or if she actually did know. When I was having the ultrasound and my tech was going over the gestational sac, we saw this strange object that was directly in the gestational sac. And it wasn't a baby, but it was definitely a strange object. And I asked the tech, what was it? She didn't know what it was. She told me that the doctor would have to explain it to me. And when I asked the doctor about it, the doctor said she didn't know what it was. She said, it could be some type of fluid-filled bleeding or sac, or she just didn't know what it was. And so I know I told you guys I wasn't going to do any more Googling, and that was definitely my plan, not to do any more Googling. But seeing that strange object in my gestational sac just didn't sit well with me. I just had to know what in the heck that was. And you know I have a history of having a PSN that never really got treated. So my fear was that it could have been a molar pregnancy. That was definitely my fear. So I started looking up ultrasound pictures of molar pregnancies, and when comparing my pictures to the molar pregnancy ultrasound pictures that I found, it just didn't look the same. So I can't say that it's a molar pregnancy. I also can't rule it out because I'm not a doctor and I'm not a professional. So I also can't rule it out. Another thing I noticed is that if it was a molar pregnancy, my HCG levels would be through the roof. Like over 100,000. Usually women who has molar pregnancies or GTD end up having HCG levels that's through the roof. They consider those abnormal HCG levels. My HCG levels is not through the roof. It's actually normal for the gestational age. So I'm not sure that is a molar pregnancy, but again, I'm not a professional. I'm not a doctor. I don't know what it is. after doing a little bit more research, I did learn that it is possible that it can be what they call a chorionic bump. Now, some of you may have heard of that. Most of you may not have heard of that, because I know I had not heard of that. I hadn't even heard of a subchorionic hematoma until I had it with pebbles. I didn't know what that was. I hadn't came across none of my TTC sisters who had it, even though they did have it, but they never, did a video on it to let other females know about this condition. It would be nice if you guys share your stories if you've had any of these type of conditions, because it will help the next woman. So when the next woman go through this type of situation, they know what to look for or what to have their doctors to look for. So I didn't know anything about a subchorionic hemorrhage until after I was diagnosed with it at the emergency room. Then when I came across this condition called a chorionic bump, I went to look at the ultrasound pictures to that, and voila, those ultrasound pictures looked to the exact, just like my ultrasound picture, to the exact, just like my ultrasound picture. So I'm thinking that that is what I have. I have not been officially diagnosed with that, but it all makes sense now. After I did a little bit of research about chorionic bumps, it all makes sense as to why I had to bleed. A chorionic bump is similar to a subchorionic hemorrhage. And the difference between the two is that a subchorionic hemorrhage is a bleed that's on the outside of the gestational sac. And it is also considered a threatened miscarriage because the bleed can be so bad that it can detach the placenta from the walls of the uterus. So there are women who have had miscarriages with a subchorionic hematoma all the way into the late stages of the second trimester. A chorionic bump, which is also called a hematoma, that is found on the inside of the gestational sac. It's not found on the outside of the gestational sac. It is a very new condition that was just diagnosed. I think back in 2006 was the first diagnosis of it. It's been around for a while, but this was the first time somebody figured it out and gave it a diagnosis. Was back in 2006. It is very common among women who have had fertility treatment. So most fertility doctors should know about it. That doesn't mean that they don't, but most of them should know about it because it's more common in women who have had fertility treatment than not. Just like the subchorionic hematoma is more common in women who have had fertility treatment than the ones that didn't. And with the chorionic bump, there's also still a threatened miscarriage. Nothing changed. It's still a threatened miscarriage. However, because it's so new, they don't know the correlation between losing the baby and the bump. They don't know what causes the bump to make the baby miscarriage. They do know what causes the miscarriage and the subchorionic hemorrhage, but they don't know what causes miscarriage in the bump. However, the survival rate of chorionic bump is 60 to 80%. So you can still go on to have a healthy pregnancy with that bump. I started looking for forums of women who have been diagnosed with that, and most of the women that was diagnosed with this condition, they bump went away by 12 weeks. It dissolved. Now, how do you get a chorionic bump inside of the gestational sac? Well, it is a bleed, which is the reason why I had that bleeding that one day, and that clotting is definitely a hematoma bleed. And the bleeding can leak through the vagina and cause excessive bleeding like what I had, just like a subchorionic hematoma. So it's definitely a bleed. they don't really know most of it. Is stated that it's from a demised pregnancy, it can be from a bleed, or it can be from a vanishing twin. Most of the women who were diagnosed with this that I found in the forums, they all had vanishing twins. That was the cause of theirs. Most of them, not all of them, but most of them had vanishing twins, and that's what caused theirs. If you have a vanishing twin trying to reabsorb itself back into your body, it can create this chorionic sac. So I'm not, again, I can't diagnose myself. I'm not a professional. I'm not a doctor, but I do believe that that is what it is, and I'm going to express that when I go to the clinic, but I'm not going to express that right away. I'm going to let them do their own examination and determine what they see first, and then I'm going to go into what I believe it is. Also, too, with a chorionic bump, it also explains why the baby keep disappearing and reappearing on the ultrasound machine. I'm going to include some videos, links. Now, I don't know how to include the video links at the top like most of you women that are more tech savvier than me. I don't know how to do that. But I will include some links in the description below of some YouTube videos that I came across, and they're not long videos. They're like 2 minutes or less, or 5 minutes or less. So I want you to take a look at those videos, and because you never know if this may happen to you. And what I learned watching those YouTube videos is that it is very difficult to get a clear shot of the baby or the yolk sac or the heartbeat when there is a chorionic bump. Like, you have to put your ultrasound machine on a certain type of settings to be able to zoom in and find that baby. If you don't, put your ultrasound machines on a certain type of settings, you're not going to find the baby, and you're going to automatically assume that the patient have lost their baby. And this is how this condition came about to begin with, because they was learning that there was too many women being misdiagnosed with having a miscarriage when they actually did not have a miscarriage. They had this chorionic bump that was actually totally hiding the baby on the ultrasound machine, and the doctors didn't know what that bump was, so they thought it was some type of mass or something, and they immediately started doing D&C surgeries to get rid of it. Human error. So that's how this particular diagnosis came about. Then one of the videos that they show that I'm going to link below was showing a video of a female ultrasound that was about 5 weeks or 5 days, probably around the same amount of weeks that they said I was. And they had told her she had lost the pregnancy, and she didn't. She had this chorionic bump, and they explained why it was hard for the doctors to find it. Now, I'm not all that upset about the fact that the OB was not able to tell me what that was. I will cut her a little bit of slack. I'm not going to say I'm going to cut her all the way of slack. I will cut her a little bit of slack. And the reason why I'm going to cut her a little bit of slack is because another thing that I was learning from a lot of the ladies that was diagnosed with that is that they doctors had no clue what it was. Because it's still very new. They're still doing research on it. They're still trying to find out some things, especially the correlation between the bump and miscarriages. And these doctors didn't know what the heck it was. They had to go, research it themselves to figure it out what it was. Now, reproductive endocrinologists, they should know what it is, because it is very common in women who have underwent fertility treatment. Another type of doctor that will probably know what it is a maternal fetal medicine doctor, because it is a threatened miscarriage, it is a high-risk pregnancy until the bump has resolved itself, and so they would know more about it because they specialize in high-risk pregnancy. But regular OBs, unless they have dealt with a patient that have had it, they wouldn't know a lot about it or wouldn't know anything about it at all. So if she says she didn't know what it is, I would accept her answer. However, she could have still went and tried to find out from a more experienced doctor, even a maternal fetal medicine doctor. We have them right there in the network. She could have sent the picture to them and said, hey, do you know what this is? I've never seen nothing like this before. Can you tell me what this could be? You know, and tried to figure out what it was. But once she learned that I was still seeing a fertility doctor, she really didn't want to be that second wheel at all. So that's probably why she left it alone. But at the same token, it could have been something more serious where it needed to be removed. Like, for instance, a molar pregnancy. Molar pregnancy has to be removed right away. You know, you can't just sit there and wait for a mother to pass that on, because they're not going to pass it on. Molar pregnancies can only be removed from DNC, you know. So she could have at least tried to get more information on it, but she didn't want to get involved. So I'm still a little bit kind of not digging the fact that she just left it where it was. So whatever. But I'm hoping that when I get in here that they would agree that that's what it is. I'm hoping that we can still find a baby. I mean, again, with this type of hematoma, it works just like a subchorionic hematoma. You still have the chances of the baby stop growing and heartbeat stop, and you end up having to have a miscarriage. So I'm definitely not out of the woods at all. Definitely not out of the woods at all. But I'm glad that I came across that, because it helps me understand better of what's going on, because I'm not getting any information from these doctors, and sometimes we have to do our own research and be our own advocate. That is the only way we're gonna get answers. So I'm about to go up in here and figure out what they come up with, and I'm gonna let you guys know. See you in a second. Hey ladies, I'm back. So unfortunately, this emotional roller coaster continues. I did once again see that chorionic bump. They agreed that it could be a chorionic bump, but you can clearly tell they're not too familiar with chorionic bumps. And the reason why I say they is because once the ultrasound tech, which is usually my normal ultrasound technician, when she looked at the ultrasound, she went and got the doctor, because she didn't know what the heck she was looking at. And so before she went and got the doctor, she saw the yolk sac and she saw the fetal pole, and she thought she saw the heartbeat. But then she went and got the doctor. The doctor came in. She didn't measure anything because she wanted the doctor to come in and measure. So she went and got the doctor, and the doctor came in, and the doctor did all the measure. It wasn't my doctor. It was just the doctor, one of the other fertility doctors that was there. She measured the baby as being 6 weeks and 4 days, which is put me 3 days behind now. At first, I was 6 days behind. So if I'm measuring 6 weeks and 4 days, now I'm only 3 days behind. And she's saying that she didn't see a heart rate, and that the yolk sac, which have always been measuring small, is measuring large now. So it's like you got all these different diagnoses. One week is this, next week is that, next week is this, next week is that. And this is just really, really irritating me. So she had asked me if I wanted to give it one more week or what did I want to do. I told her yes, I wanted to give it one more week because I'm ready for this to all be over with. But I want to get a true diagnosis. I'm going to see if I can find some type of doctor or college of medicine or researcher who is researching chorionic bumps that's within driving distance, whether that be here in Illinois, in Wisconsin or Indiana, and try to get a more definitive answer than to listen to those who are not familiar with this type of condition, and then they have me go and get rid of my baby and find out the baby could have just been viable. That's like having an abortion, and I do not believe in abortions, and I will not do that. However, I have come to terms with the fact that I am losing this baby or could be losing this baby, and if that is the case, I will be happy to go ahead and get a DNC done and get this over with. But before I make that final decision, I have to have a definitive answer. So right now, the emotional roller coaster continues. The good thing is that the baby have grown, the gestational sac have grown. The only thing is they didn't see a heartbeat. Remember 2 days ago, I went to had an ultrasound. They didn't even see a gestational sac or a fetal pole. All they saw was the bump, and they didn't even know what that was. So that just goes to show you that each ultrasound, I'm studying getting different answers. And so before I make a final decision, I want to get the correct answer by somebody who is more specialized in chorionic bumps and know more about this rare condition than these doctors or clinics who don't know more about this rare condition. So I'm going to go ahead and give it one more week. Look for me a more profound specialist, and then make my final decision at that point. By next week, I'm going to have a final decision. Either it's a no or a go. So I will keep you ladies updated. Continue to pray for me. Continue to pray for my little sticky bean. I'm not all too worried. I do have 3 more tries. I was just hoping I can knock this try out right now, but obviously it's not meant to be. Obviously God had better plans, and right now I just want to stay focused on my trip that's coming up so that I can at least enjoy that. Okay, ladies? Love you. Thanks for praying for me. Alright guys, so I got my beta results back. This would actually be the 5th beta result. As you guys recall, the 4th beta result was 22,841. So today's beta result is December the 4th, 27,099. So that's a good thing because that lets you know that things are moving in the right direction. As you guys recall, I explained that the numbers it takes a week for them to double after 6,000, and after 10,000 they stop doubling altogether. So it has doubled since the last week. So I think things are moving in the right direction. I don't believe they're going to be doing any more testing because from what I read, anywhere between 8 to 11 weeks, the numbers start to go back the other direction. So I'm not sure, but I don't think they'll be doing any more testing. So yeah, I'm gonna hang in there with all the hope and the trust that I have in God that this is going to work itself out. I just think that with the bleeding came a lot of misdiagnosis, and it's just gonna take some time for the baby to grow, for them to kind of get things right. As of now, I don't feel any less pregnant than I did a couple of weeks ago. I'm still having pregnancy symptoms. They're getting stronger by the day, whether they see something on the ultrasound or not. And because every time I keep going back, there's something different they find on the ultrasound, I'm just not going to make an irrational decision without making sure that my baby is not live and well. So at this point, the fight continues. The roller coaster continues, and I really appreciate you guys praying for me and praying for my little sticky bean. We're gonna take this fight to the end until we know for certain that there's no hope for this little being. But at this point, I'm just gonna put my trust in the Lord and pray that things all work out for the best. And if it don't, I know it was still for the best because God don't make no mistakes. Thank you, ladies. Love you guys. Bye.